Fish, Friends in Service of Heroes. We're a nonprofit based in Olathe, Kansas, 501c3 that goes fishing. We find individuals to help, our active duty military, our veterans, our military families. They'll never ask for help, so we go find them. We call it going fishing. So we're glad you're here, excited to have Johnnie here, but before we get to Johnnie, we're going to go through a few things. One of the first things that we do to start us off, right, is get you guys a little fired up. So here we go. Let's hear from the Army. Okay, now you know what we're doing. Ready? Let's hear from the Army. Okay, that's a little better. Marines. There's only like 6 of them. Navy. That's pretty good. Air Force. Okay. All right. Air Force. Wow. Here we go. Coast Guard. Coast Guard. Crickets. Space Force. One of these days. Anyway, we're so excited that you guys are here. It's going to be a fun night. This is actually our 72nd session of the Fish Speaker Series. It started out in a little cigar bar in Overland Park, Kansas, and it continued to grow. And it's just very cathartic, very healing, not just for the speakers, etc., but for the people in the audience. I mean, this is an opportunity for you to unbridle yourself of some of the weight that you're carrying. No need to carry that. You see the transparency of our speakers and such, and it's very healing. But before we let's talk a little bit about some of the things that have been going on here. All right, so we got this poker run, which actually, where is he? Justin, you want to tell us about the poker run real quick? Yeah, that's how Fish got started. Fish got started, it was initially not Friends in Service of Heroes, it was food industry serving heroes, feeding our troops. So we got that going on. Next month, we got Calvin Hayden. Calvin is our current Johnson County Sheriff, but he's also an Army veteran. And we talk about it so many times about how you guys are wired to serve. You take off one uniform to put on another. So we're going to listen to Calvin's story. Get that. Now, our Armed Forces Day event, it was May 4th. May 4th out at New Century. That was our 9th annual. It was an incredible event. How many of you attended? You know, it was just amazing. We had 2 A-10s there, a Black Hawk, a Chinook, all kinds of military equipment. 50 young people raised their right hand to take the oath to serve our country. Sergeant Major of the Corps came in all the way from D.C. You know, here's some of the folks right here, some of the pictures. There's a Sergeant Major right there. It was an incredible event. But frustratingly for me is the fact that patriotism seems to be not something that is at top of mind for everybody. We need more people to attend these events. And so, you know, how often are you that close to an A-10? And the attendance was less than it was last year. So that was very disappointing. So we got to figure that out. But it was a great event. We also, Doc went fishing one day at a Hy-Vee, found a family that had a little kid in a stroller. Military family, and this is what Fish does. So Doc went fishing, got all the details on this family, and that day we gave that family quadriplegic chairs so they can take that little girl anywhere and everywhere. The all-veteran skydiving team was in town. They came in and they support us all the time. These are ex-Golden Knights. That's Michael Elliott. Michael, good friend, he took George H.W. Bush on his jump when he turned, I think, 90, 92, whatever it was. 92? Yeah, twice, but first time at 92, so pretty cool. Ernie Garcia, Ernie received the service dog. Last year at our golf tournament, his son received the service dog this year. That young man's service dog is named Donovan after Lance Corporal Donovan Davis that lost his life February 7th. Donovan was an Olathe resident, so with the Marine Corps. And yeah, so there's Donovan, his father. Greg shared information about his son, and it was really, really pretty touching. And you know, we keep these young men, their stories alive by, you know, naming these service dogs after them. We've got service dogs named Jerry Ingram, Max DeWeese. The list goes on. We're going to show you a dog here in a little bit. Let's see, 50 young Marines took the oath. That was wow. Yeah, that was phenomenal. That's all the pictures we have. Okay, so our golf tournament was on Monday, and here we are on Thursday doing this. But here we go. So our golf tournament is the 11th annual. We're going to play just a short little video so you get a taste of what you missed at the golf tournament. We're out at Falcon Lakes in Bay Sur, Kansas for our 11th annual F.I.S.H combat golf tournament. This is unlike any other golf tournament you will ever play in or probably have ever heard of. It's fashioned after a Marine Corps golf tournament out at Camp Pendleton called the General's Cup, where, you know, you wear body armor on some holes, you throw some rubber grenades, golf ball cannons, all kinds of different activities out on the course today. And really a lot of fun. The reason for the body armor, I'm asked this all the time, the reason for the body armor and the helmet. You know, a lot of the folks that play in this golf tournament are not veterans. They've never served. And I want them for just a moment to experience what our troops experience, the weight of the nation. You know, you wonder why their ankles and their feet and their backs and their knees are in such bad shape. It's because of the weight that they carry for our country. And so I want them for just a moment to tee off and experience what these young men and women that serve in our military deal with. And it's a very humbling experience for the golfers. Many of them walk away going, I had no idea this stuff weighed so much. And keep in mind, that's just the body armor and the helmet. They're not carrying a weapon or ammo or food or anything like that. Today was also the day that we present a service dog. This was service dog number 42 that we've given away since we started. And this service dog was named Doc after Navy Corpsman, Silver Star recipient Rick Doc Puska. Doc was actually in attendance to meet his service dog, the service dog that's named after him, and also meet the young man that received the service dog. Jeff Mason, 4 years in the Marine Corps, 2 combat tours in Iraq, and like so many of our veterans, is just struggling to get off the couch, out of the house, and engage. Struggling to be with his wife and his children, doing just regular everyday activities, such as going to the park. And so we went fishing, and we found Jeff, and we didn't ask him permission. We just told him, look, we're volunteering you. We're going to give you a service dog, and it's going to change your life, as it has changed the life of so many people that we've given service dogs to. And it was a very special day. You know, our veterans love history, and so many of them, names are important, and that's why F.I.S.H always names our service dogs after people that are part of the F.I.S.H family. We want them to treat that service dog like they would treat the owner that bears that service dog's name. So that's a little bit about F.I.S.H. We're an all-volunteer organization. No one gets paid, which makes it, again, very different. And another thing about F.I.S.H is, sadly, too many organizations have forgotten about our World War II veterans and Korean War veterans, Vietnam veterans, Somalia, Desert Storm, even the Cold War. And one of the things that we really pride ourselves in is that we look after and take care of our pre-9/11 veterans. Of course, our 9/11 veterans are there as well, but they take second place when it comes to our pre-war veterans. We need to do all that we can for them. And so that's a little bit about F.I.S.H, and that's a little bit about what we did today. We had a tremendous group. That's what you guys missed at the golf tournament. There we go, wrong way. All right, so Doc, I'm going to let you take the stage now and introduce Johnny. Ladies and gentlemen, Doc Puska. Let's hear it for Doc.
I'm an insatious reader, and I can't remember who told me about this book, Tales from the Green Side, by Johnnie L. Gilpen Jr., PAC, NRP, and Bob Kramer, NRP, U.S. Navy Corpsman, as an illustrator. And I read this book and cold called Johnnie. I mean, I just had to talk to this guy. I mean, he was a former corpsman, served 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, 2nd Marine Division, and deployed with the 24th Infantry. He works as a pediatric emergency medicine physician, PA, in Oklahoma. And let me tell you a couple things about him. I'm sure most of the veterans here know who Tillman is. Tillman was a safety for Arizona and up and playing National Football League football, up and joined the Army and was killed. Johnnie won the Tillman Scholarship Award for writing. It was a big deal. He also, I have to say, you know, everybody's heard of the Medal of Honor. Well, the highest non-combat award that's possible for you to receive is the Navy Marine Corps Medal. And Johnnie pulled a couple of pilots out of a crashed helicopter in the mountains. Thing caught on fire, blew him 30 feet. He landed at a tree to keep the roots down. And he was awarded that. General Kulak was the commandant of the Marine Corps at that time, awarded him the Navy Marine Corps Medal, which is a big deal. As a PA in an emergency room down in Oklahoma City, he finds the time to run his tractor on the ranch. He finished the Bataan Death March here, 2 months ago? You know, so he's a sucker for pain, I guess, you know, I would say. But anyway, Johnnie's here today. He drove up. His mom's sick. He's got a lot of things going on. He still took time to jump in the pickup and come on up, and we sure appreciate it. Johnnie, you got the floor.
This is George. Everybody, George is kind of a hero. When I started working, when I was at VA school, didn't have time to cut my hair, grew my beard out, looked more like a motorcycle guy. And I was doing my pediatric rotation. Babies just didn't quite right. So they were like, you know, I was the oldest guy in college in medicine. They said you need to get something, so I stole my coat. Now, let me say the dog is not used to yet, and it worked. And then the next month, I was doing a rotation with some adults, kind of a big joke. And there was an older couple in there, and they were in their 80s, and they were kind of snickering, and they said, hey, what's the deal with the monkey? And I said, well, it works great with kids, old firemen, and Marines. And she started laughing, and I said, what's so funny? She goes, well, my husband's a retired fire chief, and he was a Marine. And he really likes it. So I've been keeping it on. And then during the pandemic, when you couldn't go into a room, and it was just you in there, and nobody else could come in, well, here comes a guy with a pink sock much in his pocket. So you had to say, well, this guy's either kind of all right, or he just escaped from the VA mental ward across the hallway. And so during the pandemic, about halfway through, some echelon person said I couldn't wear George in the adult ER anymore because it wasn't appropriate. And they had this big wall of heroes of these pictures of everybody that patients bought for outstanding care and stuff. And they're about $300 where you can take a picture, turn it into a painting. I did not make the wall of heroes, but George did. And he was there till this past Monday when they took it down. They said no longer need it, and they gave me his award. So that's George. That's kind of became my sidekick, and if he's not around, you know, everybody kind of knows it, and it just really works well. It's a great tiebreaker. So thanks, Rick, for asking me. Thanks for having me here. As George said, there we go. You'll see a lot of pictures from a buddy of mine. He's a former and he's head of heavy rescue in Florida at Disney. So you'll see a lot of cartoons and stuff here. I'm a pediatric emergency medicine PA in Oklahoma, and I also do veterans disability C&P exams. Lets me play with the clowns, and it lets me help keep the circus in check, and make sure things are getting done right, because there's a lot of providers out there who don't think that we deserve our benefits. You guys have probably run into that, and I found that a lot of and so I think what the problem is if you've never lived the life and you've never embraced the suck, it's really hard. That's my side gig. And so pediatric emergency medicine is probably one of the greatest jobs I've ever had outside of being a corpsman. After the pandemic, as you can imagine, I was just shot very, very over the top, and somebody called and said, hey, you want to come over and work? So for the last 2 years, it's what I've been doing. I love it. I know when I go to work, I'm going to learn something. I'm associate professor in the college there at the PA program, and I get students, and they'll walk, what do you think? And I'm like, I got nothing. And you go to the next one, I got nothing. One of my students, at the end of the day, I said, well, what'd you think today? She goes, man, I feel a lot better. I said, why? She goes, I've been really feeling really, really dumb. But she said, you didn't know anything today. And I said, okay. So, that's all right. And that's what we see a lot of the patients. The other thing is I know that the opportunity is going to present itself at some point during that day, that I get to make a difference either in somebody's life, whether it's a patient, a coworker, or their family. And the third thing that I know, that when I leave, I'm going to be a different person than when I walked in, because those kids or somebody else is going to make a difference in my life. 98% of the time, it's good. Now, this past Tuesday was the first time I wanted to strangle a parent. They watched somebody beat their kid, and they went to the bathroom. So I had to walk away. So that was one of the bad days. But 98% of the time, I love it. It's one of the greatest jobs I've ever had. People come up and they say, oh, man, you do kids. I couldn't do that, right? They say, well, I worked in the ER, I worked this at adults, but, man, I just couldn't do kids. Anybody can do kids. It's really not that hard. And I tell them, and they're like, well, how do you do it? And I tell them, well, I said, it's like this. I said, pediatric emergency medicine is like taking care of Marines. The only difference is the kids don't cry as much and they don't eat as many crayons. But the mentality is about the same. And let me lift that to you. A couple weeks ago, I had this little 5-year-old kid. He had broken his arm the week before, and it's in a cast now. And then he comes back in. He had fallen on an outstretched hand. He's broke it again. Broke the other arm. And I pull up the x-ray, and I'm showing his mom. He just starts crocodile tears rolling down his face. And his mom's trying to comfort him and says, it's going to be all right, son. It's going to be all right. He screams at the top of his lungs, no, it's not. And she says, yes, it is. He goes, no, it's not. And she goes, yes, it is. He goes, how am I going to wipe? 5 years old, he had already thought through this problem, And I don't know if some of my Marines would have thought through that. But the other one is one of my favorite deals, and this is truly 13-year-old kid. It was Sunday night. Most of our child abuse comes in on Mondays and Sundays and Mondays, or alleged child abuse, and they thought this might have been. And they'd flown him from southwest Oklahoma. This kid had both broke arms, and he had raccoon eyes. He was in a soft collar splint. And so I come in there, and Mom's sitting over here, and she's got this look like she thinks I'm fixing to take her kids away. She's been crying. And you guys remember this kid from The Sandlot, right? Yeah, that's what he looked like. Just mention this kid with broke eyes and this deal. And so I said, what are you doing, man? He goes, well, we were playing sniper war, and they had some kind of high-powered guns, water guns, and he was trying to get up. He said, I was trying to get on a sniper's perch. And he said, I fell, and I hit every step on the way down, and I knocked myself out, I guess. His mom said, well, it was about 12 foot. I said, okay. I said, knock yourself out. And he was like, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, maybe. I said, okay. Did you, buddy, anybody there? He said, yeah, my best friend. I said, well, he called 911. He said, no, I made him swear on his life not to. And I said, well, why'd you do that? He goes, he named off 3 girls' names. He said, they asked us to go roller skating, and they never asked us to do anything. And I said, this happened today? And he goes, no, yesterday. This happened yesterday at 4:30. And I'm like, yeah. I said, so you went roller skating last night? And he goes, for 3 hours. I said, how'd you go? Who took you roller skating? And his mom says, well, his friend's 16-year-old sister. Well, you know, a 16-year-old girl and her friends are not going to pay any attention to little brother and his, buddy. So they roller skated with these girls for 3 hours. And I said, well, how'd you get home? And she goes, well, my 18-year-old daughter and her boyfriend picked them up. You think they paid any attention to him? No. And so I said, well, Mom, where were you? She starts crying. She goes, I was working the 3 to 11. We have these restaurants called The Kettle. I don't know if y'all have them up here. She said, I was crying, and I didn't know what I was going to do. Are you going to take my son? And I'm like, no, I don't. It'll be all right. She goes, but I woke up, and this is what I found. I kind of started, almost tried to not laugh. She goes, are you going to take my son? Take my son? I said, no, ma'am, no. I said, he's going to be all right. But I said, when he turns 18, I know some people who really want to talk to him. And she says, well, is he going to be in trouble? And I said, no, ma'am. I said, I know some Marine recruiters who want a few good men. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, anybody who will go roller skating for 3 hours just to be with some girls, I said, that's the kind of people Marines want. Sorry, Johnnie. Would you have recruited him? Yeah. So, but the aspect of it is still the ER. It's a pediatric ER, and bad things happen in the ER. It's just like in the military, sailors, Marines, airmen, Coast Guardmen, what else? When they go down range, some don't come back. When kids go to the ER, some of them don't come back. Now, first responders in the military, there's an innate understanding that bad things happen. When you go in, you know that there's a chance of that happening. And we train for that, right? Those are immediate action drills, and that's to help you fall back. When everything goes back, you go back to your training. Well, in medicine, we don't have that. Hospitals like to think they train, but as me and my two work wives over here, no, they really don't. They really don't train. They think they do, but what happens is they get experience, as a friend of mine says, about 30 seconds after you needed it, right? And so one of the failures that I have found, and this kind of goes along with what you guys and veterans, and I'm taking my aspect as a veteran and 53 years of what I learned, because my dad was a Vietnam vet, and he said, you're not going to be like me. And he took me to the Veterans Readjustment Center. He said, you're not going to wait as long as I did. And so, whether it is the military culture or it is the medical education culture, they have not taught self-care. They teach you to go to war. They teach us how to respond to emergency accidents. They teach us how to go to disasters, man-made. They teach us all these aspects. But what they fail to do is they fail to teach us how to come home. They failed to teach us, more importantly, how to be home, right? That's bigger. They failed to teach us how to live, and living is an art. And so I started my emergency medicine fellowship March 1st, 2020, right? What a time to start an emergency medicine fellowship. I walked in. I'll never forget the first 90 days of my fellowship. I won't forget what happened afterwards. I won't forget the day I walked in the first hour a man died, and by the end of the day his wife died. and they were the same age as I was. I won't forget having to walk out into the parking lots and talk to family members because their 86-year-old man's wife who had a stroke, non-COVID related, couldn't go into the hospital. You know, all of these things I will remember. And I published a deal, The Circus is Coming to Town in the Warhorse, on March 25th. I worked as an epidemiologist prior to going to PA school, and people were asking me my thoughts. And, you know, we didn't miss it by very much, did we? We told them it was going to be a fiasco, and what was it, guys? It was a fiasco. And so, but one of the aspects about it is for our healthcare workers, and a lot of people don't think about this, is that the pandemic was the closest thing that healthcare workers will ever see to combat. And when you think about it, it was like combat when you think about the physiologic and the psychological aspects of what happened to them. It was a combat tour. You've seen a lot of people who were in it have left. People that I started with have left. And the deal is that I don't think people think about it like that, and I'm starting to see it now because I can recognize it. I'm sitting up here at 30,000 feet. I can see myself in these people. I mean, you guys see it in the younger veterans, right? Do you not see yourself at a younger age, see what some of these guys are doing? And I don't think people realize right now, they say, oh, I'm fine. But I have to say, that short period in our life, that 3 to 4 years we served in the military, some people served 20, but did you realize how much that affected you, how much it changed your life, how much it shaped you until years down the road? I don't think they're at that point. And one of the aspects is when we talk about it is, somebody asked me and said, we talk about a combat tour versus a pandemic tour. I would rather go back on a military tour before I'd ever do a pandemic tour again. And somebody said, well, why would you do that? Well, there's a concept, old aspect, why men crave war. And ladies, tonight I put men, women, guys, it's all the same. Everybody bleeds green, red, fire engine red, blue. But there's a really good book. If you've never read either one of these books, Tribe or by Sebastian Younger, War, he does a really good job. He was embedded with the 173rd Airborne in Afghanistan. At the time he was there, it was the most dangerous place on earth. He picked a really hell of a good time, he said, to show up. But one of the things he talks about is when people come back home and why they yearn to come back. Why do they crave war? A lot of his guys wanted to go back. They were re-volunteering. They would rather leave their lives. Why do they crave it? Why do you miss it? What do you miss about it? Well, most people don't miss the gunfire. You don't miss the mortar attacks. You don't miss the death. You don't miss the destruction. What do you miss? Well, I'll show you something. This is Sulphur, Oklahoma. On April 27th, this is a town that I worked in for 14 years as a medic in PA. This is what it looked like on April 26th. Well, it didn't go. There's what it looked like the next morning. One person only died, thank God. Luckily, it hit at 10 o'clock at night, and the only place was a bar. 20 people got inside an oak bar, a U-shaped bar, and it fell and collapsed on top of it. Now, and so I was down there working, took off work, and I'm going to show you a picture. And I don't know if you see what I see in this picture, but my wife, she noticed it first, but I didn't notice it at first. What do you see in that picture? You see the smile on my face? Yeah. I'm amongst death and destruction. People have lost their homes, and I'm happy. That really bothered me. And I will tell you, I went home and cried about it. Why? Why was I happy? Because for 5 days, I got to walk among giants. I got to walk among people who had a goal larger than themselves. I got to sit, I got to eat, I got to be among people who didn't care anything about how much they got paid, what was in it for them, just about doing it. And the key aspect is for those people who have lived among giants, you know what I'm talking about. Walked among heroes. If you've never done it, you've never been there, it makes no sense. But there's other kinds of giants. These guys are some of my guys I trained with. They're firefighters. They can be in the civilian world. Guys joking around. During the healthcare, there was a lot of giants that I worked with. But I think in the book, The Tribe, they talk about we miss the tribe. We miss the clowns. I don't miss the circus, but I miss the clowns. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so one of the things is that Sebastian says, brotherhood is not available in a civilian society. Friendship is. Friendship is a reflection or a function of how people feel. If you don't like somebody, you're not going to risk their life for them, and you're probably not even going to loan them $10, right? But in combat or working in a high-risk situation, chasing somebody in a gunfight or the police officer or in a burning house, that doesn't matter. It's about the brother-sisterhood. Feelings do not matter in a brotherhood, right? It's a reciprocal relationship. It's a shared relationship. I don't care if I'm mad at you tomorrow. The relationship is I'm willing to risk my life for you, and you're willing to risk your life for me. And so that is probably the one thing that I miss the most. Now, where do you find that? There's a lot of paramilitary organizations that I found when I worked, but it's hard to find, right? When you come back home, I've not found that. And so you miss those people. But the other thing is that only place you find that is in the struggle. And Romans 5:3-5 says pretty good. Not only that, but we also rejoice in our suffering because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, hope, and hope does not disappoint. One of the reasons I did the Bataan Death March, everybody thought I was crazy. If you don't know what the Bataan Death March is, it is supposed to be the toughest marathon in America. It's 26 miles. It's out in New Mexico with a 30-pound rucksack. It's to commemorate the Bataan Death March. It took me 13 hours and 3 minutes. You go from 3,900 feet, you tap out, highest at 5,500 feet, 13 miles. There's a sign that says, Pat Garrett was shot here in 1908. It's kind of interesting. Then you drop back down at mile 20, you can see, you're 6 miles out, you can see the big military water towers, and they drop you off into a creek bed with ankle-deep sand, and a mile and a half, and you're just shot. People quit at mile 25. I did it with a group of 9 other Tillman scholars, and that just bonded us together. So that struggle makes a difference. But somebody here, where does this go and how do we get there? So all of this stuff that we've learned as veterans, we've struggled. We're taking what we learned from our group. Now, the VA is not the best group in the world, and we all know that. There's not the best health care, but it's better than what healthcare people have. We've learned tools, right? There's nothing out there in the healthcare world. And February this past year was probably, a year ago February, was one of the worst time I've ever had as an ER working in there. We lost 6 kids in 4 weeks. 3 of them I had worked on. And one of them was a little less than 5-year-old boy who had asthma. Kids with asthma are not supposed to die. But this kid, it just happened. We worked him for an hour and a half, and at some point, there was just nothing else we could do. And you were sitting back, and you could see everybody, you could watch it, and you could see people playing things back in their head. And my titting sitting over here on the side, and I know this guy, and I've worked with him a long time, and you could see he's just playing it. Fast forward, rewind, back up. What did I do wrong? Could I have done something different? And I sat down and I said, "Hey, Doc, you all right?" And he goes, "What could we have done? Could we have done?" I said, "Doc, we did everything we could do. We did it right. We did it by the book. But we could have," I said, "sometimes there's a higher power at play, and there's nothing else we can do." Then he looks at me, and he says, "Johnny, how do you keep doing this?" I said, "Keep doing what?" He said, "This. You've been doing this some way, form, or fashion now we're pushing 30 years. And I said, "Well, I don't do it very well. Ask my wife. You can ask my 2 work wives. I'm a mess." And he made the comment, he said, "Well, you're still here." We finished the shift. That bugged me, and I kept thinking about it. What was he saying? What he was saying was not, "I'm still here doing the job." He was asking me, and we talked about it later, he was asking me, how come I haven't ate my gun yet? Because we lose 1 physician a day. You're twice as likely to commit suicide as a physician if you are a female. We lose 1 pharmacist a day. We lose multiple nurses a day. We lose 1 PA a day. You're twice as likely to firefighters. Actually, our cops are the lowest end of our first responders. And then I'm a veteran, and so here's some stats for you from Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri. And we're pretty high. 18 to 34, 50 per 100,000. Kansas is really high. Missouri, for 18 to 34, you're the highest in the nation. For veterans, 18 to 34 for taking their lives. About 22 a day. So I'm in that high category rate. And then I'm a first responder, still responding to these things. And why am I not doing it? What makes me different? Am I any different than these guys? Actually, I'm probably not. I'm probably worse off. But what makes me different? We thought about it. I went back and I said, "Doc," I said, "there's probably 3 reasons I'm still here." I said, "One is my faith in God." I said, "I lived enough." I said, "I should have been dead." I said, "I don't know why God kept me here, but I am." And God talks to my wife. He doesn't talk to me. He hits me up upside the head, like here right before I went to PA school. I was riding my motorcycle, and a buzzard flew up and hit me. That morning, it was August. I never wear my leathers in August, and I put them all on. My wife said, "You trying to be a biker today?" And I said, "Well, maybe." But the grasshoppers were horrible. You'd come back, and you couldn't see the black because they were yellow. I got the bike laid over, and I got up, and I checked myself out. And I looked up to God, and I said, "All right, obviously my radio is not attuned to the appropriate radio station. What are you trying to tell me?" I applied for PA school. I got in. I applied for the Pat Tillman. So maybe I'm doing the right thing. I don't know. The other aspect is I have a Rolodex of friends that I can pick up the phone anytime and call them, and they're going to pull me back off the ledge. That's an amazing thing. They'll be there anytime. And the other thing is my tools. I've learned a set of tools. My dad had, when he passed away from Agent Orange cancer, he left me his toolboxes. My dad was that guy who could build any kind of motor, who could tune it by ear. I can build a motor, but I can't. Once it gets there, somebody else has got to come. And he left me all of these tools over here. And there's a whole another 3 drawers of them that I have no idea what they're good for. I kept them. Some of them are bent in angles and stuff. trucks and tractors and stuff that we didn't have, but I kept them. Just kind of like we have mental tools. What do we do with them, right? Well, somebody's got to come along and show you. I met a man a few years after my dad died. His name was Max Martin. He was a helicopter pilot, veterinarian, certified. He could work on rotary wing, fixed wing. He was truly a renaissance man. He left me his pickup. It's a 97 Dodge pickup, 12 valve, Cummins diesel, twin turbos, methanol injected. It'll peg out at 130 mile an hour. Yeah. I pulled my fifth wheel with it. I had to put a cruise control on it because I could pull it faster than the camper could hold. So the concept is when there's that, everybody says it's a Japanese aspect. I looked at really where it came from. It actually came from a 1914 publication. When the pupil is ready, the master will appear. And I'm not the master, guys. But when we start working, and this is where we as veterans can help our young healthcare workers and our other families. I got 9-year-old kids wanting to kill themselves, hanging themselves. I've got 16-year-old kids coming in that have had $1 million workups before they get to me for nausea, vomiting, can't stop, and nothing works. And I said, well, does a hot shower help? And they said, oh, that's the only thing that helps. And I asked mom and dad, said, well, can I talk to them by themselves? And I asked, well, how much marijuana are you doing? Now, I'm not here to talk about whether marijuana is good or bad, but these kids think it's natural, and they're overdosing on it. I give them some Halidol, and it takes about 45 days, and they quit vomiting. And I said, they keep telling me, oh, it's natural. I said, well, tequila's natural, too, and I drink a whole bottle of tequila, and I'm not getting up in the morning. But most of the kids, it doesn't work on them. It works on adults. Most kids have never drank tequila. But the doc, he said, can you build me a class? He said, can you take the things that you know? And I'm like, well, Teddy Roosevelt, this saying, and I have this problem, it gets me in a lot of trouble. He says, if somebody asks you, tell you to do something, you tell them, yeah, I can do it. And then what do? I figure out how to do it. I have visions. Except for Cricket says, you're not sharing what you're smoking with us. One of the things about having a TBI, guys, and if I get to speaking, I'm missing words, I apologize. That's one of the bad things about having a TBI. She's like, give me vows, when I got back out of grad school, and this is prior 2002, 2003, I had a doctor, I took a stats class, half the class got caught cheating. I'm walking down the hallway, and she's about 5 foot tall, really gray hair. She's wearing 3 pairs of glasses. She's got one on the top of her head, one on the bridge of her nose, one hanging around her neck. You know that, Professor? She's standing out in the hallway, and she says, Mr. Gilpen, we need to discuss your test. And I said, Dr. Neese, I did not cheat. She goes, oh, that's very obvious. She made me go get tested and found out I had a TBI. So anyway, next is a program we call the Art of Medicine, a warrior's profession. And this program is really pretty cool. We're going to talk, that's what we're telling you guys about, what we're doing and why we're here. I don't want to talk about the bad stuff in my life. I want to talk about the good stuff. Take what we've learned and how to take it to the next generation. Talk about resiliency and professional longevity and a warrior's mindset. Why do we want to do that? Guys, we've changed it. It's really cool because it can go teach it. We teach it to PA students right now. We got 6 classes lined up to all of the people who responded to all the tornadoes in Oklahoma. You guys probably have seen over the last, a foundation in Oklahoma is paying for it. And then it goes to guys like me who are looking for that exit strategy. And the other thing is it moves laterally. So we have the law enforcement aspect. We're giving it to therapists. And one of the reasons why we're here, the art of living, which we're working to start giving to kids, taking some of these concepts. They're really simple concepts. But why a warrior's profession? I've had people say, well, what's a warrior? Well, you ask people what everybody has a difference of what a warrior is, right? My generation, one of the reasons I wanted to be in the military all my life, one, my grandfather was a World War II vet. My uncle lied to get in the Army. By the time World War II was over, he was 16 years old. He was a corporal with a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. The war was over. They kicked him out. He came home to the one-room schoolhouse, graduated high school, went back in the Army as a corporal, made it through Korea, Vietnam. I remember the first show I remember watching, and of course it's just sensational, but I remember watching the Green Berets. That was a show I watched. It was one of the few shows my dad as a Vietnam vet would watch. Now, he loved the sands of Iwo Jima. He was a Marine. I mean, I don't know how many Marines that don't love watching the sands. He liked that movie. But now we have all of the others. We have these guys. They're all, we have the 12, about the guys, the first Special Forces guys that went into Afghanistan and stuff. Most people think of warriors as carrying a gun. That's not what. There's nothing about, say, as a warrior, that you have to carry a weapon. The key understanding when you start looking and researching a weapon is, one of the aspects is there's two components. One, you have to be willing to give your life. And the other one is you have to be willing to serve others. Well, I have to say that the WHO says somewhere, they don't know for sure, but at least 180,000 healthcare workers died around the world during the pandemic. I think medicine equates, right? I know when I went into work, when I got sick, that was the longest 12 days because I had seen a lot of people die, and I'm 100% just on my lungs alone. I didn't know if I was going to live, and I damn sure didn't want to die like that. I didn't. So that's one aspect. And so there's a saying, some have accredited it to Sitting Bull, whether he said it or not, I don't know, but I really like it. It says, the warrior for us is the one who sacrifices himself for the good of others. His task is to take care of the elderly, the defenseless, those who cannot provide for themselves, and above all, the children for the future. So if we can get people to start thinking like a warrior, and that's what we're trying to do, I'm trying to teach those who are in medicine, hey, change your thought pattern. We can get kids to change their thought pattern. Because if we get their thinking and thought pattern, if you're working, get our veterans back to thinking that you're warriors. What you're doing with fish, what are you doing? You're fishing, right? You're getting people to start thinking. If you're out there serving others, whether church or whatever else, then it takes suicide off the table, right? Because we're not samurai. If you commit suicide, you cannot what? You can't do this, right? And it really works. When you start looking at it, there's a lot of research. When you start changing the mindset and giving people functions and something to do. So that's one of the aspects we started doing that. And this is my disclaimer as an emergency medicine provider, I should say. I am not a certified, psychologist. These are practices I've learned myself and not meant to replace anything your doctor tells you. I forgot I was supposed to say that. That's what my insurance people say. But when we're out here doing trauma is individual. It's an individual aspect that you treat. And how we treat veterans and healthcare workers is a little different than we treat somebody who has been abused as a child. Like I see it every day, like the kid I just talked about, that I was really ready to strangle his mother. Versus us. Somebody who's a rape survivor as a child, they treat them to forget it, get over it, and get on with their life. They don't want to remember the event, right? Me, on the other hand, that day, May 10th, 1996, there was 14 people tied to that event. I remember them very well. One of their mothers, Nancy West, says, that which is remembered is not gone. So if I remember, then Kirk is still here. All of these guys are still here, right? And then this girl in the blue dress, she grows up to be a master sergeant. And then I remember, because this painting somebody gave me 27 years ago still hangs in my office. It's a daily reminder. It was on the cover of the Marine Corps. Is it Leathernecks, I think is the name of the magazine. But when we start doing with healthcare, how do we do it? How do we treat trauma? This is one of the things we have to talk about. Is the first thing we do is we deny it ever happened. That's the first thing. Well, it didn't happen. Some of us are still in this stage. And some of these stages all go together. This is the morning of May 10th, 1996. I don't remember much about that morning. Most of it's just fragments and pieces. And I really, truly don't remember my life before that. Fragments and pieces. It's like I was reincarnated. I can remember certain things and things will come back, but I don't remember a lot of my childhood. It's really strange. I think it's because of the TBI. The one thing I do remember smoking, and I didn't smoke, but I sold rolls of Copenhagen and hard pack Marlboros to my Marines, $25 each. Only God, the CO, got the credit. Didn't give credit to Marines because you never get the money back. And I also sold Heinz 57, A1, and Tabasco in the field. I was just doing my medicinal job as a corpsman, right? And so I remember sitting there smoking, and I remember this big pile. I watched the sun come up, and he said it was in the mountains. I'm sorry, it was actually in a swamp. And I remember watching the sun come up over the ocean. And that's one of the few things I remember. But I denied it for a very long time, the things that had happened. And then we start to cry at that point, and this kind of comes and goes, and you think about it. But this is one of my favorite cartoons, Calvin and Hobbes. You'd be surprised how many people don't know who Calvin and Hobbes is. But I think it does what we do. Is, he's telling us he wants to go out and play. He's crying. He's wanting out. His mom says, well, you got to clean your room. And what's he do? He just stuffs it all in the closet. Well, that's what we do, right? We stuff it all in our closet. Just keep stuffing it in there, stuffing it in there, and stuffing it in there. At some point, what's it going to do? It's going to come out. We numb. And that's part of the numbing portion. Some of us numb with alcohol. Some of it with drugs. Some of it with marriages. I got one of my very best friends. I would trust him on anything to have to do with medicine, rope rescues. I don't listen to him on anything on women. He's had 3 marriages. He's 3 divorces so far, working on number 4. But on those aspects, how do we do that? That's some of the aspects. How are you doing it? You have to recognize it. And then we run. I know this one pretty well. And EMS workers, how many healthcare workers and EMS workers they go from agency to agency or job to job. One of the things, there was a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Shea. There's a book called Achilles in Vietnam. It's a really great book. You ought to, if you want to read. He talked about, with his Vietnam veterans, how Homer wrote about PTSD 27 centuries ago. And then he also talks about, he wrote another one about the Odyssey coming back home and how he did that, talk about coming back home. And he said there was 3 kinds of people that basically came back home. You had the guys who came back and relatively went back into society, didn't have any problems, they thought. You had the guys who came back and drank and drugs. Then you had the other guys who come into the high-risk jobs, cops, firemen, get into high COs. They're needing adrenaline. They're focused. I kind of fit in that category. After about 1.5 years, I quit drinking, and I went into this job. What am I still doing? I'm pediatric emergency medicine. I think I'm still in that realm. Still working on it. Now, I got a buddy of mine. He made it from Omaha Beach to D45. So you can think what he saw in those 45 days. He was captured twice by the Germans, escaped twice, finally had a grenade, ended it, and then he made it. He came back home. Swore he never had a nightmare, never had a problem. Came back home, raised 5 kids, was a farmer. Not a single problem until he was 91 years old and his wife died. And then he just lost it. All those things, all of that stuff came back. So it comes around. So we think about this aspect. And so when we started working on this project, everybody says, what are you doing? Well, I'm not doing anything new. I'm really not. You know, here Twain said there's no aspects that are new. Let's see if it works. There, yeah. He said we just put it in a mental kaleidoscope, we twist it around, and we go. And that's what we're doing. It's just trying to take it and go to the next thing. And so I was working with this program called No Barriers. Anybody familiar with No Barriers? Check it out, guys. The Warriors program. If anybody wants to go out in the woods, you know, some veterans who need to go out and get some mountain time, woods. This is a great program. It started by two friends of mine. You probably know who Eric Weinmeyer is. If you've seen him, he's the first blind man to ever climb Mount Everest. Yeah, and he's climbed 7 summits. He kayaked 277 miles of the Grand Canyon blind. And the other buddy's Jeff Evans. Jeff's the guy who made the bad decision to take him to the top. He said he blamed it on the 105 Grateful Dead concerts he went to. They came back. Eric made it to the top, and somebody told Eric, he said, don't let this, Everest said, don't let this be the greatest thing you ever do. And of course, then Eric finished up. He said, man, the view sucks up here. Let's go. You know, and that's a true story there. And so they came back, started the Soldiers Summits, which is now this. And anybody who is disabled, it doesn't matter. Their focus is to get, whether it's visible or invisible, to get them out into nature. And during the pandemic, they had a program for warriors. And what it's based on, these are things that Eric came up with: vision, reach, pioneering, rope team, alchemy, summits, and elevate. Vision is defining your purpose. What's your purpose in life? Pioneering is persevering through those challenges and innovating. Alchemy basically is, what's alchemy? Basically was taking, you know, when they try to turn lead into gold, the impossible. That's what that's about. Reach is moving beyond your comfort zone. Rope team is collaborating and connecting with others. Summits is you're finding your true gifts and elevating. So I asked Eric, I said, hey, I got this program. I want to do something good. He says, well, what are you going to do? I told him. He said, yeah, take it. Go with it. Whatever you want to do. I said, all right. So that's what we've done. And so I've added the Johnnie touch to it. That's me and George. Does it look like us? Yeah, Rob does a pretty good job. And so we're going to talk about it. I don't know how much time we got left. I've been running. And we doing good? All right, great. So summits. This is some of the things I hope you can take back to yourselves, to other people. I've moved it around because how they were teaching veterans to how I'm teaching other people is one of the things that I see, whether I was in the adult side of the hospital or I was in the pediatric side of the hospital, a lot of the people that I see are on the last rung of their ladder. And what I mean by that, the only place they got left to go is where? The mortuary, right? And they don't believe they have anywhere to go. They have nothing good. Nothing ever good has happened. And so we want to talk about their summits in life. Getting people, everybody has done something good in their life. Even people who have done bad things have done something good in their life. And we'll try to talk about it. And so I'll back up here. So like I talked about, I started going to the disability or to the Veteran Readjustment Center, and every counselor that I have ever gone to, every therapist that I've ever talked with, groups there, they talk about writing your daily gratitudes and your affirmations, right? Everybody know what I'm talking about? Well, I have a book that I really like, and I do a so-so job about writing in it. And when I really do it, it makes it really, I do really well. Because when I write it down, and you see it visually doing it and writing it, it's up what they call the reticular activation center in your brain. And that imprints, that gets you, that kicks you in gear, it motivates you. You know, when you do stuff with my wife, I hate lists. I hate lists, but my wife makes lists, but I hate them. It's a reminder of all the things I got to do. You know, I said I'd keep it in here, but I can't, you know. So I write them down. But it activates that aspect. And so for me, I didn't write it down this morning. I was running behind and life gets in the way. But if I'm going to write something, this is what I write down every day. I'm grateful for God. I'm grateful for my wife, Leslie. I'm grateful for my dog, Cookie, Harley, Bob Marley. You read my book, you'll figure out who they are. And Harley, then Mads and Kyle. You notice we put the kids after the dogs. My mom, my sister and her husband, Bonnie, Randy, Ryan, brothers, my sister Sabrina, my niece, and Ryan. So I kind of go down my family, my friends, my health, my future, my job, and my career. I write those down and try to make every day. I write those down. And then my daily affirmations is I choose to believe in myself. I can accomplish anything I put my mind to. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to work smart, diligently. I'm going to try to be a positive light. I'm going to keep grinding. These things help do it. But one of the problems with it is, it's on my desk. I write it all down. And what happens? Close it up. Where's it go? On a desk right over here, right? Well, the world keeps coming. Bills keep coming. The job's got something. The wife, the husband, the kids got a problem. Parents. My mom had a car wreck. My sister had a car wreck this Monday. The boss has got something. 2 people quit at work, and so you're going to have to pick up the slack. Life keeps happening. And so what happens to that RAS, even though it was there, but it kind of slows down. And what happens to our motivation? It wanes, yeah, and then something else takes over, yeah. So we lose all of that. And so during the pandemic, my only salvation was running. And if you saw me, I used to wear cane. I had canes. I walked with braces, especially after my spinal surgery. I had to have emergency spinal surgery during PA school. But I got back to running. I'm a slow runner. I do about 15-minute miles, but I get out there and I'm just doing it, training. Put some earbuds in and I go. I was listening to just about every podcast, anything that was out there. And, my buddy Jeff turned me on to this guy, Chief David Goggins, retired Navy SEAL. If you don't know who he is, you ought to check him out. Now, if you are offended by his language, and if you check in my book, there's a disclaimer. My book was written by a sailor about sailors and Marines. I put that in there. You're welcome. And he talks like a sailor, and all of his stuff is about sailors. But Chief is out there. He is a motivational guy. He was the 35th or 36th African American to make it through BUD/S. He went through Hell Week 3 times. He runs all these marathons. He is just a crazy individual. Talks about struggle. Talks about things. But he had a mental cookie jar, and he was talking about it. And he talks about he has this Rolodex of things he calls his cookie jar. And when he's on the ropes, when he's having those Rocky moments, you guys know what I'm talking about? When Apollo Creed has Rocky on the ropes and he's just beating him up and he finally falls down. And you have that moment when Mickey's saying, down, down, stay down. We all have those moments. And that's when he pulls out his mental cookie jar and he goes back to when he ran the Badwater 140, or he ran his first X, or he passed this or passed that. Well, I love that idea. The problem with it is I don't have the mental capacity to pull it out when I'm on the ground. Matter of fact, when I was doing my Baton Death March, they had these guys driving around on these ATVs and stuff, asking, how you doing? You want to ride? And I was, how do you think I'm doing, man? And about mile 17, I'm going back up the hill, and I was like, man, if that guy comes back down here, I'm going to knock him off it, and I'm done. And the lady up above me, she flagged him down, and she quit. I guess I got to finish the race. But anyway, so I went and bought my own cookie jar. My cookie jar. And I started. filling it up with good things in my life. These are cards from my students, Baton Death March. And the cool thing about this is it's visual, right? It activates we're visual people. But unlike that book right there, I can see that on my desk. Now my students that we go through, I've got some students who this is the one we give the class. It's just a simple jar. And some of them are carrying it around in there every day. That way when they go to class or come to those clinicals, they pull it out and they can see it. Just a simple tool. Doesn't mean much, but it really helps. And I didn't know if it really worked, if people were using it, but I got a friend of mine. He's a physician attending there now. He's from Israel. And he was having a really hard time. People were saying he wouldn't get along with people back in October. And I said, well, anybody ask him about, did he have any friends or anything? And myself and Anna Lee had gone to Israel, and so we know some of these places. I'm watching it. I know what's going on, and I went up and said, hey, you all right, man? And he had lost a couple friends, and some of them were still missing. And so we talked about it. I gave him a cookie jar. So him and his wife, and I'm not Jewish, and I don't understand the whole practice, but him and his wife every week, he showed me his jar, and they put their daily, weekly things in it, people using it in different ways. It's a very, very, very simple tool. But one of the things when we start working with kids, how do you take it home? We have these kids. Some friends of mine have taken it and working with their kids is what we call resiliency data points. The difference between perseverance and resiliency, perseverance is I just kept going, right? That's me doing 13 hours and 3 minutes. I just kept going. But resiliency is every time you get knocked down, you get back up. You get knocked down, you get back up. So we tell people to start writing down these good things. Well, these kids don't remember it, right? Or you don't remember it. Write down the good things. When, the where, the why, the who. Man, and write down the haters. Who told you couldn't do it? Goggins has a really pretty cool on his website. All these people who say negative things about him, he takes it and he dictates it to something he can run to. So he runs to all of the hate stuff. I'm like, man, that's interesting. I don't think I can do that. I don't have that many haters. But the haters, because that I showed them, and you know, that reminds you what you do, and you put them back in there, and we start doing that. So we start teaching people to fall down 7 times, but you got to still stand up 8, right? Unless you're this lady. Mr. Smith, can you get back on the gurney for us? You know. So anyway, and then it's fuel, guys. What that is fuel. Now that's a can of fuel. What do you do with it? You can set it on your desk and do nothing with it, and put it up. It's like the winter. You've put it in your gas can, or you put it in your lawnmower, and you leave it over the winter. Better yet, leave it in your boat, and then try to go use it in the spring. What's it do? It doesn't run, right? Because what has happened to the gasoline? Yeah, just dissipated. So it's no longer worth the fuel. The second thing is I see a lot of people do is they take it and then they put it on everything they have and they burn it to ash, right? They burn all their bridges, burn it down, and they come to me with 3rd-degree burns. And then the other thing is I like to do is you can turn it, this is me, turn it into jet fuel. Find it, use it. You know, use it for something good. You know, put it in the rocket, be Wile E. Coyote. However, just make sure you don't buy anything from the Acme company. Right? Yeah. If it says Acme on it, don't buy it. And the other aspect we talk about, we're going to short here, is the rope teams. We're almost done, guys. Is rope teams. Now, I don't have to teach military guys how to work in teams. I don't have to teach a cop how to work in teams. I don't have to teach a paramedic, fireman But a lot of healthcare workers, they think they work in teams, but doctors and stuff, they really don't. They spent their whole career going from here to here to here to here, and they really don't have anybody. They don't know anybody. They're kind of isolated. And so one of the aspects that we started, a rote team, comes from the aspect of who's going to catch you when you fall. That goes back to my concept of the Rolodex, right? Who am I going to call? Well, I took it and added something, the foxhole principle. This is something every veteran in here should kind of understand, especially if you're a Marine or in the Army, you've dug a few. But the Army has a concept. I never seen a 3-man foxhole when I was with the Marines. Did you? Yeah, they only do 2-man, right? The 1943 Army manual says a 3-man foxhole is the best fighting position there is. One reason is one man's on guard, one man is resting, and one man is either eating, maintenance, something else. And then it says in there, if the enemy attacks it's harder to take a 3-man position. Now, most people in the world, they don't have a 3-man fighting position in their life. Most people in this world are in a 1-man fighting position, right? And a 1-man fighting position leads you to where? It's an early grave, right? Most people. And so they talk about, we try to get them to ask, well, who's going to be in your foxhole? Who do you call? People, my students and stuff, and people I've been working with in healthcare, and they're like, I don't know. I don't know what to call. Who do I trust to call? What kind of friends do I have? Or they write somebody down, and we start talking about what kind of friends you have. And they said, well, Johnny, what kind of friends do you have? Who would you call? What kind of friends do you think you want in a foxhole? Well, they don't all have to be people you growed up with or whatever, but I have a friend of mine that he's the oldest friend I've had in the world. We've known each other since we were 4 years old. And there's a lot of tales that we can't tell in public, but December 24th, 2009, Oklahoma had 14 inches of snow. Y'all probably don't think that's a big deal, but in Oklahoma, with the blowing snow, that's a really big deal because it drifts all the roads shut. And then the high interstate was shut down, and they were pushing everybody south to go down this one little road that always drifts shut. And we rescued 208 people that night. I put 25 people in my mom's house. We put 50 in another. Had one person that had a broken femur. We couldn't get him to the hospital. I had a 4440 John Deere tractor, and I could put 2 people in at a time. And I had a fireman with me, and he'd stay at the car, and we'd go. And it's kind of interesting. I collect the Jim Shore Santa Clauses and stuff. My grandma started years ago, and my mom still does it. And the one she had bought in July was a Santa Claus Jim Shore. It was called 2x2. It was Noah's Ark. I thought it was kind of interesting. But we got everybody. We thought we had everything. We'd go from car to car. We'd clear it, mark it, go to the next one. Next morning, the sun came out. It was beautiful. We kind of slept in. About 4 o'clock, somebody calls, says they were missing somebody, one person. So we go back to where this big car pileup was, and the snow was really deep. Some of the cars you couldn't see. Some of the places the snow was up to the top of a semi. So I go, all right, guys, we need to do an avalanche deal. It's not lining up, and all my friends there from my hometown on the fire department, they just kind of gave me that look like, what the hell are you talking about, Johnny? I said, all right, we're going to take our poles, our pike poles, and we're going to go. Well, unfortunately, we found the individual, and what we think is he had been in a car, and he had caused the accident. He didn't have a driver's license. And so he had gone back to a car that had already been marked, and he got missed, and he got suffocated in the snow. So now how are we going to get him out? Well, we needed heavy machinery, and my buddy Brian had heavy machinery, or he had some. So I called him. I said, hey, buddy, I need you to bring your Bobcat over here to where we're at. And he says, why? I said, I can't tell you. What do you mean you can't tell me? I said, I can't tell you. I just need you to get in your Bobcat and drive over. He said, you know what time of night it is? I said, I know what time. He said, it's cold out there. I said, I know it's cold out there. And he said some choice words, and his wife, he said, Johnny wants me to bring a Bobcat over there. Why? He can't tell me. And he just hangs up the phone on me. The cop is standing there. He says, is he going to come? I said, he'll be here. He said, you really think he is? I said, yeah, he'll be here. About 35 minutes later, here comes this little bobcat without a cab coming down the road. He gets out. He's going to punch me in the jaw, was what he was about to do, because he thought I'd tore something up or whatnot. He didn't know what I'd done. But he goes, why am I here? And then I told him why. And then he felt bad. But I didn't know who was around. We hadn't told the family we'd found him. I didn't want anybody to know. But the aspect of that story is what? Yeah, he just came. So, who's in your foxhole? And we start talking about that. Well, some people, and my wife is one of these introverts. She says, well, I don't have anybody. She says, I don't have friends like you. You know, I have friends from the military. I have friends that I grew up with. I have my friends from Homeland Security. You know, I'm that kind of guy. And, you know, as a corpsman, I meet a Marine. It's usually an instant bond, and we just go to work, and that's how it is. She's not like that. She goes, well, I don't know who I'd call. And I said, well, and I talked about there's people that you could have. You could have direct contact, near contact, and no contact. And then that direct contact is those people that I see every day. That some contact is people like Doc here. I can call him up, and I think he's going to answer my phone call, and he's going to give me advice, but I'm not going to see him again for a while, right? And then there's that people that are no contact. I didn't see David Goggins. I've never met the man. But he was in my ear every day. I've listened to his book 14 times. Now he's got a new one out, so I'm listening to it. It just running. So he's in my ear. So you don't have to have somebody in there, but we're working on getting people. We'll get to this last kind of deal. We're talking about visions. What's your vision? We talk about getting kids and stuff or other people. Where's your vision in life? This is the actual operation map one of the Marines had from May 10th, 1996. But people get lost all the time, and we say, hey, take a knee. Not in protest, just take a knee. Drink some water, pull out your map, and go back to your last known point, right? And, of course, just don't trust the lieutenant, right? Never give a lieutenant a map. So one of the things we created as a vision carry-on, and this is part of that group, is, everybody know what a carry-on is? Well, this is Jeff and my friend Jeff, and you can see it's a rock piles. You know, they mark, when you're out, especially in places, they mark the trail. If you know where your last trail is, you go back to your last known point, right? So we designed a life carry-on. I took it from what I did. I started writing things down. You know, I didn't have a bunch of rocks. In Oklahoma, I don't have a bunch of rocks where I'm at. They talked about writing them on rocks. So I made my own. And then I started taking things, well, what's important to me? Well, community connection, perseverance, harnessing adversity, positivity, optimism, creativity, forgiveness, faith, always being a good human. Man, you want to talk about making some doctors mad? Man, they'll say, well, I can't, they don't want to come down a lot of times. And you say, well, I can't do anything for that family. You know, they're on hospice or this or that. And I'm like, well, Doc, you can be a good human. And man, they hang up the phone. They can't say anything to that. And my docs are like, man, you can throw that out there all the time. I said, well, yeah, they come and see the patient. But anyway, we haven't really run out of time, but I'm at the end of it. But these are some simple tools that we do. The training itself is changing lives. And for the first time, I feel like I'm able to take what I've learned from the military. Of course, there's a lot of people who say, well, you shouldn't put so much military into it. Well, the concepts work. The analogies work. I don't know of any other place that it works right. And so there's the training itself is a 4-hour, 8-hour, 12-hour, and 16-hour, and we're doing it. And it went from, like I said, and a lot of the stuff we're doing, the reason why I'm here is my book. I wrote the book for myself, and so we was publishing it. Nobody wanted to publish anything we did, so we started our own publishing company to help veterans and first responders and stuff work on getting their stuff published, which was kind of an interesting concept. The book came out. I was really surprised. I'll be honest with you, I published it for tax purposes. I was trying to, my tax accountant said, if you don't have any income off of it, you can't count anything you've done this year. So I was pushing it out to get it out in December. And it was the #1 best-selling new medical fiction on Amazon and the #1 doctor in medical humor. I wrote about all the dumb stuff that we do, how we treat our corpsmen and stuff. Doc read it. I had a lot of Vietnam veterans reach out to me. One said it's the first time in 50 years that he could talk about his military service. The other guys have talked to me and said, man, I'm letting my kids read it, my families read it. They understand the gibberish that comes out of my mouth. One of the guys in there, you read about Stanley. His real name is Stavely. Tommy will kill me for saying that. But I asked him, I said, did your wife read it? He goes, yeah, she read it all in one setting. And I said, well, what'd she say? She came out and looked at me and goes, please tell me you're not Stanley. Another guy's wife called me and she was a little upset with me. And I said, well, what's wrong? She goes, I know that's me. And said her husband's name. I said, no, it's not. She goes, yeah, it is. I was there for that. And she goes, I said, well, what's wrong? She goes, you gave me a stripper's name. I said, what? She goes, you named me Tiffany. I said, all right. But the book, it's a great book. We've got several more. The cartoons, we're fixing to have a cartoon. The cartoon started with my friend Rob. He started drawing. He released the first cartoon book in 1997. They're his original ideas. And we've gone from there. But we use the cartoons. There's the back of the bus from all of the first responder aspects. And our goal is to change lives, just like what we're doing, one at a time. And I hope that's what we're doing. One person reaches out and the next person reaches out, and we go from there. So, any questions? See,
yes, sir. Thank you for your service in bringing this wonderful presentation to us. This is awesome. A lot of what you said really resonated with me and all my walks that I've gone along my path to find happiness and mental health. I'm really interested in your book, but with my TBI, reading is really hard, but I listen to a lot of podcasts. Do you have this in audiobook form? And if so, did you narrate it?
Well, we're working on that. With my TBI, it's kind of hard to sit down and do it all in once. But so we're working on that. It's a little harder to get done. I figured out all of the publishing aspects. We're still working on the audio, so we're getting there.
I got a narrator that did my book,
Okay.
and she's excellent. So,
the one thing that's been funny is, like, he asked if we did it. A lot of people said they don't read books unless the author. I don't know. That was interesting. But we try to do both. Like, Amazon made me change the cover of the book for the Kindle. They said the book was too gory for Kindle to publish and promote. So we changed it. So if you get on there, you can go to our website. You can go to 8400 Publishing, or you can go to JohnnyGilpen.com. If you don't have a chance to get a book here, you want one. But they made me change the cover to be able to promote it. So yeah, I'm learning. Maybe we'll do both. I mean, I'm not above anything, and we've got Tales from the Back of the Bus, which is about EMS, and Tales from the ER, and Rob's. And it's all these cartoons you see up here, a lot of them are in the book. So I try to put the cartoons to the pictures, so it helps people visualize what I'm talking about. And the whole context of the book is Rob and John, two people out trying to find America, stumble into a bar in North Carolina. And they don't want to write war stories. They don't want the bad. They're looking for the good. And this old retired senior chief says, well, you want to write sea stories. And they're like, sea stories? Well, what's a sea story? Well, a fairy tale starts out once upon a time, and a sea story starts out, well, there I was. So, well, that too. Yeah, it kind of goes a long way. There's a little bit of a different version, but that's it. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Johnny,
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. From one Oklahoman, one fellow Okie to another. I'm from southwestern Oklahoma. Hobart, Oklahoma. Yeah. Hey, by the way, a Navy corpsman, Vietnam Scotty, wanted me to give that to you as well. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for Johnnie Gilpen. His book's going to be over here. And, all right, so don't forget, next month we've got another incredible speaker. Justin, I think we have some swag that you want to talk about, right? And then we're going to do, by the way, if you're a veteran and do not have a raffle ticket, please hold up your hand. Right there, right here, a couple in the back. I see Patrick. Patrick, by the way, Patrick's the one that did the golf video. Just did a fantastic job. Thank you so much for that. That was absolutely beautiful. Yeah, keep your hand up, Kevin, Patrick, right there. Very cool, very cool. So, again, Johnnie, your story about who's in your foxhole, man, I'm telling you, that was really powerful, because that is one of the things that we really pride ourselves on with F.I.S.H. You know, they know, everybody that's a part of F.I.S.H. knows that you've got a buddy. It's a buddy check. And usually it's like, where you at? I'm on my way. Am I right? Am I right? That's the way it is. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. That's very good. All right, so does everybody have your raffle ticket? Because it's time to rock and roll.
All right, real quick while I'm tearing up